Have you ever wondered what part of landscaping makes the most money? Or have you ever wondered why do lawn care businesses fail?
I do not live in a world of needing to shrink the pie so we can all have our little slices and win. And I don't think a lot of really successful people live there either. A lot of really successful business people really believe that the pie of America, the opportunity is growing and growing, and there's room for lots of it. There is so much opportunity coming. Just believe that and go for it.
Have you ever wondered what part of landscaping makes the most money? Or have you ever wondered why do lawn care businesses fail? Or maybe you're wondering, how do I stand out in my lawn care business? So today we're going to answer those questions. We have Paul Jamison, the Green Industry Podcast. How's it going, Paul?
Fantastic.
We've got Jonathan Batoshnik, the original lawn care millionaire. How's it going, Jonathan?
Going awesome.
Awesome. So we are here in where? We're in Texas, right? We're in Texas. We're in Texas here, and we came out for an event, Vid Summit, which is all about content creation, YouTube specifically, and we're just learning how to create better content for those of you watching, so that we can kind of help educate, learn, grow the community in the industry in a lot of different ways. So I wanted us to really focus on some of the main topics that are searched the most, that a lot of lawn care and landscape businesses are looking for answers, right? They're struggling with this. I know I've struggled with this personally. I'm sure we all have at one point or another. We're all at different levels. For those of us, or for those of you, for everyone that's listening and that's watching that don't really know much about what we're talking about, or maybe they haven't seen you in a while, or this is the first time watching the channel or listening to the podcast and they don't know who Jonathan Batoshnik is, why don't you get everyone caught up to speed, kind of like your background, how you got into this industry and what you're up to now.
So I got into the business by accident. I wanted to be in technology. I mowed lawns as a high school kid, but I really wanted to be in technology. I started my first software company in my early 20s. We threw in the towel after a few years. I didn't want to get a job. I didn't really know what to do. And so I accidentally ended up in home services way back. And it worked out. And I ultimately ended up building a number of home services companies, and I ended up building software in home services, and all the while, things I don't normally talk about because they're not necessarily relevant. I did a couple other software businesses as well. So I've just done lots of stuff, from technology to coaching to actual building of home services companies. And at this point in my career, I'm dedicated to specifically home services. That's what I'll be doing for the rest of my business career.
Got it. So let's just dive right into these questions. When you hear, how do I stand out as a lawn care business? How would you answer that question for somebody?
Well, there are tactical things and there are long-term strategy things.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think, how would I stand out?
So when you say tactical, that's more short-term. When you say
it's like, what are the very
long-term?
specific actions I could do right now to start to show up in my marketplace? One would be, I would wrap, paint, vinyl all my trucks. That's a way to stand out. You're starting to get exposure. It's at the top of the list. It's a massive mistake not to do that as fast as you can afford it. Another way you stand out is by the marketing that you do. So what is getting to the mailbox, which really isn't an early strategy because that's expensive, but I just use it as an example. It could be a door hanger. It could be what's showing up on the mailbox, or in the mailbox, better said, but I use that again as an example of what are the things we're doing to get in front of the person. Your website, but that means you've got to get found online. Reviews, the quality of your reviews very much impact how you show up in the mind of the buyer, how you're positioned with them. So there's a list of those kinds of things that are probably the things most people think of. That's the showing up stuff. But I'll go back to that truck thing. I'll go back to the reviews. Those are some of the single most important things. And then I would also put the website up there. Those are tactical things. But then also, how do you show up to the client, the market, from a strategy standpoint, is how are we going to position ourselves? Are we known for quality? Are we known for customer service? If you say that the way we want to show up in the market and how we want to be seen over the next decade is we want to be known to really take care of the client in a way that most of our competitors don't, so that when they think of us, they can justify spending a little bit more money to go with our company versus someone else. Or when they have three options, they're like, well, those are the guys I can count on. That's longer term stuff, and that is where you're thinking about high customer service. What's that mean? It means you have to staff up your office team a little more than your competitors do. It's lots of things of that sort. I'll pause there, but those are the two things I think about when you ask me that question.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I know for me starting out as a solo owner operator, one of the key things that I did to try and stand out and get my name out there, one, it was kind of critical, right? Because I went from 15 years of retail management and just dove right into lawn care full time, though I did have a year part time doing both, but I dove right in full time, technically after a year, and I had to succeed. I couldn't fail because I had to be able to feed my family and pay the bills. My wife had a full-time job at the time as well, which helped. But my number one goal was, how do I get my name out there? So I'm just constantly quickly thinking of all the ways, just getting out there on social media networks, and Facebook was a big one for me. And, finding the different local HOAs, the homeowner association neighborhoods that I could market in and just get in do one property somehow so that people see me. But I also made sure I got a door magnet. I just got some door magnets to put on my used F-150 that I got by trading in my Jeep when I went full time, and this way I could actually start doing lawn and landscape work. Just got some door magnets with my logo, contact information, put them on the back of my tailgate and on both sides of my truck doors so that there was something there. Of course it wasn't big and a huge thing for people to see when they're driving by, but when I'm parked in front of someone's yard doing some work, they're walking the dog, they're driving by, they stop, they can look, they see the logo, they see the contact information, and they contact me. So that really helped me kind of start building that word of mouth and that reputation and that branding. And then obviously as I evolved and my business grew, I have an big enclosed trailer with it all lettered up, and my truck's all lettered up, a different truck, all these things. So that is obviously those were the critical things that I started with, and just continue increasing that as I got bigger and invested more.
Yeah, that's great. You got me thinking to be really specific about some of the things we did back in the day. To build on what you said, we painted our trucks as soon as we could, and the way we just found this cheap company that would spray them. We did not pay a lot of money to spray our trucks. The paint job was not so good that they'd be great for 5 years. They needed to be resprayed somewhat frequently, but it was cheap and affordable for us back in the time when we really didn't have much money to invest in the business. We then just basically found a lettering company. We didn't wrap them, to put the letters on the truck, and we kept them pretty simple. So we did that faster than a lot of companies do. So just you used the example of the sign on the door. What is the cheapest way you can do this where you get seen? And I picked yellow because I liked yellow. It was actually my favorite color. But I picked it because I saw all these DHL delivery trucks running around yellow, and I always noticed them. I was like, yellow, that's a great color. And so it was really that simple. And then we would do 9 arounds. So we would leave door hangers on the 9 homes around. So if you mowed a lawn, then you do the 2 homes on either side and the 5 across the street. When we had more time, we did the whole street. When we would get a new client in our office, on our printers, we would print up this letter that it said notice at the top, and it'd have the street name. So it'd be like notice Main Street. And we would print these up, and they basically announced that we're taking care of one of your neighbors, and we would send it to everybody on the street. So and we did it out of our office. And so every time somebody bought in the neighborhood, we tell everybody else in the neighborhood they bought. And we didn't pay a mailing company to do it. We did it ourselves. My wife did it. And then if somebody called us and they requested an estimate and we didn't close them right then on the phone, then we mailed a lead letter to them that my wife would take to the post office and drop off before 5 p.m. and that prospect would receive at their home the next day. And the reason there's other things we did, but almost everything I just described, we did it ourselves. We printed the stuff on a printer in our office. We designed it ourselves. Our people put it out ourselves. We weren't hiring big marketing companies. So what are those things where you can just get really creative and constantly be in front of the person that you want as a client? And that's one way I think about standing out. But what's the default? I'll wrap here, but what's the default that most people think of? Is like their brain immediately jumps to, I need an SEO company, I need to hire a postcard company, I need to hire a marketing company. And as soon as their brain jumps, they're like, oh, that's gonna be $2,000 a month, that's gonna be like $3,000. That's each time I do a mailing. And they're like, well, I can't do that. Someday I'll do that. But the someday never comes because you didn't do all the labor intensive things like we did yourself, but that bring the cost way down to ever get there, to have the $2,000 a month or the $3,000 for the mailing. And so think about that. I think all that's actually still relevant today, but use the examples I just gave to say, what are the really creative things I could do? Back in the day, 1-800 Got Junk stood on the corner with signs on busy intersections wearing costumes, parked their trucks in parking lots. Like, what is that, as you'd say? I think we were talking about that this week, guerrilla marketing stuff that you can do and do that.
Yeah, basically, like, what can you do to stand out, right? Like,
Yeah.
what can you do to bring attention to yourself in a good way,
Yeah.
right? Paul, what did you have anything that you wanted to add to that from your experiences?
That's good.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one, what part of landscaping makes the most money? Now, before we answer this, I really want to say this because it's so relevant, right? So I was surveying online and I got this information from serviceautopilot.com.
Oh, really?
I didn't even tell you that when I said this
okay.
before. So it's from serviceautopilot.com.
Good thing I didn't say it's a bunch of BS.
Right? You're like, I don't know about that when I was telling you. So from serviceautopilot.com,
Okay.
which, is what Jonathan, said that he co-founded, built, and all that good stuff. So this is right in his, I don't know what year this is. It's from February 14, 2024. So you're off the hook,
I'm off the hook. I haven't been there.
But according to serviceautopilot.com, 60% of residential landscape companies beat revenue expectations. 88% of surveyed landscaper businesses offered lawn care and chemical application. 48% reported landscape and mowing maintenance as their most profitable landscape service. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind while answering what part of landscaping makes the most money. That's Service Autopilot's take on it, probably from surveying their members and everything.
They probably were also looking up data from industry surveys and
Right.
things of that sort.
Right.
Yeah.
But from your experience, building your own landscaping company and, co-creating a essay and all of the events you've been to, all of the hundreds and thousands probably of business owners that you've coached, mentored, talked to, what's your perspective on that as far as what
Maintenance
part of
makes the most
landscaping?
money, but specifically business lines that have low cost of goods sold. So pest control, fertilization, weed control, arbor care on the health and fertilization side, disease control side. Those three are three really phenomenal services because their product cost and labor costs combined, which makes up your cost of goods sold, are much lower generally than the installation of a landscape when you combine the labor and the material cost, or they're lower than the activity of the doing the mowing of the property. So I like the maintenance side of that business best, and I like those services. I like irrigation. But those three I named, I believe to be three of the most profitable. You can have specific services that don't drive as much revenue, like mulch can be really profitable. There'll be other services, but when you talk about services that you could build into multi-million dollar lines, I mean pieces of the business, those three can get really big and make a lot of profit. Landscape can actually make a ton of profit as well. You just don't see most people do it. But it doesn't. I got a video coming out on this, in fact, this week, on why I'm so negative on the landscape industry, landscape installation. And it's not that I think landscape installation is bad. I just don't see many people that do a good job at it and actually make a lot of money. So I would put landscape installations in the category of an area you can make a lot of profit. Just most don't.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like, and Paul, you can back me up on this from all of your experiences and interviews and everything. I feel like the mentality is reversed out there, right? They think maintenance is like the worst.
100%.
Right? And they think everything else
100%.
is the best. And I argue that maybe that's because of due to lack of like all the inefficiencies, right? The lack of route density, the lack of the things that we talked about standing out, like finding affordable, low cost, ways of getting in the game and offering new services, and just being more tactful and affordable to all the things that you're doing, and not having too many things to offer, right? Keeping it simple. I mean, yes, ultimately you would need more lawn mowing accounts than, some other high ticket like hardscaping and things like that, but it's also reoccurring revenue. It kind of, you can get it a little bit easier. You can market it a little bit easier.
You
And
can
if you,
actually scale the business. How many landscape guys scale their companies into something big? Not many.
right, because it's so many variables. It's not like you can't just tell, whoever to just go do, every single thing is different. Every property, every job, it's not as easily scalable. It takes a lot more eyeballs and hands and skilled labor and all these different components. So yes, there's a high profit margin in those, but it's not, what's going to make you the most money traditionally, right? And so I just really wanted to I thought that was interesting. One, that's a very common, frequently asked question, but two, I think it's just a completely different thought process than most people have, unfortunately. They think it's the opposite. They try to stay away from maintenance, or they do maintenance for various reasons, but they don't think it's very profitable. They don't think it's going to make them much money. They just do it because it's reoccurring revenue, it's cash flow, or whatever their scenario is, but they could be, making so much money. I remember one particular 8-figure business owner many years ago told me that mowing was the most profitable service out of their entire company. And I was like flabbergasted when he said that. I was like, oh my gosh, like I kind of felt that way, but even at that level, I was thinking maybe the numbers would be a little skewed or whatever. And he's like, no, it's the most profitable because we have it all dialed in. We have all the neighborhoods together. We have the same truck set up, the same equipment. All the guys and girls know exactly what to do every day, day in and day out. It's like clockwork. So it's literally the most efficient and most profitable service that we offer in our over $10 million a year business. And so I just really wanted to point that out to help anyone that's listening and that might be thinking the opposite. So
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, I know so many people that make a lot of money in mowing. I recently put out a video called Lawn Mowing is a Terrible Business. And it is a terrible business unless you get the business model right and you can turn it into a good business. And that is the story of every single business out there. There are a million people in every single business whining about how bad that business is. And then there's a few that are doing really well. And it's because of the business model. They've figured out the business model and how do you reverse the problems with the business and make them advantages? How do you fix the problems? That's what my video was about. Why it's a terrible business. It was not just a whining and complaining a business or a video about why mowing is bad. It's like, okay, here are the problems. And then 70% of the video was dedicated to here's how we fix the problems to make this a good business. Apply that line of thought to every single trade, every single business. There's a guy making $10 million a year take home in an HVAC business, and there's another guy somewhere saying HVAC sucks. And all the lawn care guys are like, man, maybe we should be in HVAC. I hear you make a lot more money there. But there's a whole bunch of guys in HVAC that say, HVAC really sucks. Maybe I should be in something different because they're just doing it wrong. And that's happening everywhere. So there's ways to figure out how to make almost every business good.
yeah, 100%. So rounding things up here with the third, one of the three most frequently searched questions asked in our industry, why do most lawn care businesses fail? And I'll let you answer.
Fail as in like literally go out of business or just never become what they should have been? How do you think about that?
Maybe give two answers, but I mean, the Googled question is, why do most lawn care businesses fail? I'm gathering there are a lot of failing lawn care businesses that Google that because they want to know what they're doing wrong, what can they do to improve.
Yeah.
So I don't think people are Googling this after, they're not searching this after they've already closed up shop.
Oh yeah, maybe in advance trying to figure out.
They're trying to figure out, how do I save the ship from sinking?
Yeah. I actually think lawn mowing as an example is one of the safest businesses you could possibly start because there are so many buyers for that service.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also at the very same time, and I'll answer the question, it's also at the very same time, though, a business where you could really not make a lot of money if you don't do it quite right. And so eventually it fails not because you're not making any money, but simply because you're just not making enough money. So two ways to think about failure. My brain goes to, there are a lot of people that are failing that still are in business and will be in business for another 10 years. And the reason they're failing is because they said they wanted this, like something. They wanted a business of a certain size, and they're achieving something very different, much smaller. It doesn't look like the business that they imagined, and they've given up. They didn't educate themselves. They didn't fire the people that shouldn't have been they're still in the company that they hate. They haven't done all the things that they know they need to do that will get them the result they want. And so they're failing. And they just need to, they need to, all of us, I went through this. We all went through this. There's stuff you got to learn, and you got to have hard conversations. You got to do hard things, and you got to do the work. And then you can, and I'm oversimplifying here, but that's a form of failure if you've given up. And so I think the same reason that somebody might give up is the same reason you might also shut down the business. And examples would be that we didn't focus on the right stuff. And I talked about this at your event last year. The right stuff, the only stuff that matters is how do I get the next client and how do I get the next team member to take care of the next client? All this other stuff is noise. It's all noise. Like there's so setting up your processes and procedures, creating systems, like reading the next book, like the next business idea, going into the next line of service. It's all noise. All that matters is you get one or two services and you sell as much of that as you can. You find the people to do that work so that you have enough money to afford Susie in the office and then Bob to help you in operations. That's all that matters. But we watch YouTube and we listen to podcasts and we get 90 new ideas and we're running off on tangents and we don't get anywhere. We just do lots of little things that make us feel good, but we won't make any progress. And so ultimately enough time passes where the thing hasn't got big enough and our wife or our girlfriend or whomever is like, kind of want to take the kids on a vacation. I kind of need a new car. And you just you eventually give up because the thing didn't make enough money and you go out of business. And it simply goes back to, we're not focused on the right stuff. We're not doing the right stuff. We didn't learn how to do the marketing. We said, oh, it's $2,000 a month to get an SEO company. I don't know what I'm going to do. But we didn't get, like, back to the beginning of this video, we didn't say, okay, well, what are those things I can do that are like those guerrilla tactics of, I could go knock on doors. I could go literally put door hangers out myself. But most people don't actually do that stuff. They hit a wall, and the wall is, this thing's going to cost a certain amount of money or whatever the thing is, and it's hard, and they stop. And if you really want to be successful, you have to go all out and do whatever it takes. And back to the guerrilla marketing thing.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the issue or part of a perception is that, lawn care landscaping is for this person or that person, or it's dying or it's dead, or you can't make any money.
You mean the industry is dying?
Yeah, like in lawn care landscaping, or you can't make like the people that are searching that are the people that are thinking, that there's no opportunities, or it's dying, or I can't make any money in this business, in this industry. Meanwhile, another online source states that the United States lawn care market size is estimated at $58.69 billion in dollars in 2024 and is expected to reach 75.71 billion by 2029. So in 5 years, it's going to increase 5.2%. So it's only going up.
There's your outtake. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I had this tickle developing in my throat. I was like, I gotta take a drink of water. I'm not gonna be able to talk.
No, it's all good.
It's your ear too. Yeah, I'm gonna jack that all up for you. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Yeah. So what'd you say?
Oh man,
I'm sorry.
it's all good.
Yeah, let's hear those stats again from the top. That was terrible. And then I started taking my drink and I just knew it was going to go bad. And I started laughing at the same time I was coughing. So I blew it all up. Anyway, all right.
Take two. Oh, man. So an online source says the United States lawn care market size is estimated at $58.69 billion in 2024 and is expected to reach $75.71 billion by 2029. So that's growing 5.20% in the next 5 years. So this is an industry that is growing, not dying. A lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of competition, right? We talked about this a little bit off air because it's such a low barrier of entry when you talk about maintenance anyway, and then you kind of grow into other things and evolve in other things. But just because it's a low barrier of entry, that's why we talked about how do you stand out,
Yeah.
right? I think, I don't know if we even, I don't remember if we touched on this, but a way to stand out is just answering your phone and showing up. We didn't even.
How
we
did I
didn't
not
even
mention those two?
Right? How can we forget about those
Yes.
two things?
And then
right?
paint the truck.
There you go. There you go. I mean, literally, you stand out by answering your phone and showing up.
Crazy idea.
But it's so crazy
And getting
that
your
it doesn't.
estimate to them like right away.
Yes.
Not in a week or never.
Right. And listening to what they want and not telling them what they want,
Yeah.
and all these things. So it's shocking to me, but because it's such a low barrier of entry, everyone just pours into this. Every Chuck with a truck just jumps in there and they think they can just make some money, and they can, but they're not going to. Then they end up falling in the category of searching, why does lawn care businesses fail, or and they think, what am I doing wrong, or they think that it's just like a trash. Like, so what do you do for a living? Lawn care. Okay, well, what's your real job? Or what do you really do for a living? It's like, no, like I have like a multi-million-dollar lawn care business. Like not everyone has to do that. You can be successful solo owner operator, still make six figures and be perfectly happy. But the point is, there's a right and wrong way to do it, and to stand out, there's some real simple fundamentals in the beginning, and then you can build off the other things that we mentioned in this episode, because this industry is growing and it's not going to stop, right? Because like I said to you before off air, people keep making more people, right? So we just keep growing, we end up growing more grass because we build more houses and more neighborhoods. So we just need to cut it. There's a lot of maintenance, a lot of landscaping that is being planted and growing. It's not going away. Like that, the more we grow on this planet, the more there's landscape and lawns to be maintained. So that's one of the main reasons why this industry keeps growing. So
Agree. Yeah. There's that, but there's also what has been happening since the 50s. I don't know how far back we need to go. People are outsourcing more and more of stuff. There was a time when everybody would have mowed their lawn. There's no way you would have somebody mow your lawn. And it was such a luxury service. And that's true of so many of the trades. But more and more, we're having our homes cleaned, we're having our lawns mowed, we're having our bugs killed, we're having everything done for us. And as you move up the ladder in life, that's exactly what you do. And when all your neighbors are doing it, that's what you do. When early days of City Turf, in my market where we were serving, this would be like 2008, 9, very early days of the business, we were in this area that was called the telecom corridor of the world. WorldCom, Nortel, Alcatel, all these companies were here. And when the whole telecom industry and everything imploded and Nortel went bankrupt, bazillions of our clients, people all over our market lost their jobs. They got hit very, very hard. Our business grew. And that was when I knew, and I remember very clearly thinking, mowing lawns and trimming bushes is not a luxury service. They will not go to Chili's on Thursday night. They will have their lawn mowed this week. It's not our service that's getting kicked to the road. They're going to skip something else. They're downgrading something else in their life. And that is happening all over this country as people make more money, move up the financial ladder. You don't even have to move up the ladder very far. I've got a friend that owns a big, ginormous poop scoop business, and they're amazed at how many trailer parks they pick up in. And somebody would say,
wow.
Yeah. And somebody would say, well, maybe in a trailer park area, people are being maybe it's not that they don't have money. There's an association who have money. It's not necessarily the case. Maybe they're very careful with their money. And so the association would be, they would never buy those services. They buy a lot of those services. And that is what's happening. Our it's back to the labor problem we talk about. In the parents are not telling their kids to go out and mow lawns. A kid that never mowed lawns growing up, are we really thinking that when he gets to be 24 and he's making $68,000 a year, he's going to start mowing a lawn? I don't think so. He's going to hire that service out. He never did it. And that's so you talk about people are making people and it's growing. Well, also the trend, and I think you should ride trends in business. The trend is this stuff's all growing. People don't want to do this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And so what I think is happening is there's the population's increasing, which means there's more landscape being created and to be maintained. And then there's more and more of those people are appreciating their time and wanting to do more things with their time than maintain those landscapes. So what's happening is there's a gap that's being created between the two, right? There's this huge margin that's being created of an opportunity to maintain those landscapes.
Yeah.
Right. So so now more than ever, to your point, Jonathan, there's a huge opportunity, and there's actually too much opportunity and not enough of us to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So the companies and the owners, that are thinking right and following some of the tips that we've shared in this video, you can really profit and capitalize and grow to whatever level you want, to be able to crush it in this industry for sure. So
yeah, I'd be careful of that thinking. There's a general theme in America that everything is imploding, it's all about to end, and I just think that is a bunch of baloney. There are negative things, but what we hear all this stuff about, it's all falling apart, it's all going to end, how horrible everything is. It's it's going to be worse in the future. And yes, of course there will be stuff like that, but that thinking gets into our thinking on our businesses. And the data does not say the same thing. It does in certain neighborhoods, in certain areas, of course, but that's always been the case. There are parts of the economy that do great and there are parts that don't do great. The data does not tell the story that the media tells. It just flat out doesn't. But business owners hear this stuff and they get beat down. And then it becomes the story that we tell ourselves about why the thing we're doing isn't working. And that's not why the thing isn't working. It's not working because we're not doing it right. And I mean, me too. I could list a bazillion things I've got wrong, and I wish I could do them differently, because I learned to, I've just learned over time, like we all do. We grow and mature and we learn. But a lot of times these narratives give us cop-outs from doing the real work of figuring out how to make these things, our businesses, work. But don't let that and my message is, do not let this negativity that you hear in the news beat you down and suck the optimism out of you. Because if you do, you're not going to build the business that's going to be something that really takes care of you and your family. I think it's a real danger in the country right now. It's probably one of the things I'm most concerned about. I'm less concerned about what's really happening. I'm more concerned about the narrative that we're all telling ourselves, that who do we become as a nation in the long term? Because we're all telling ourselves we're all falling apart and bad. And I went off on a little tangent, but I think it massively infects the brains of business owners.
I agree 100%. And that's why we are trying to do our part to get this kind of information out, so all of you can learn and listen and succeed and push past all of the noise. So.
Yeah, I do not. I don't think I do not live in a world of needing to shrink the pie so we can all have our little slices and win. And I don't think a lot of really successful people live there either. I think a lot of really successful business people really believe that the pie of America, the opportunity, is growing and growing, and there's room for lots of us. There is room for you to build your company. There are room for more people to come in this industry and build great companies. We are facing also a time when tons of, call them old timers, people that preceded all of us, are going to are retiring now. There is so much opportunity coming. And man, just believe that and go for it.
100%. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for letting us come to your house and,
of course.
and get
Happy
some
to have
content.
you guys here.
Having a good time. It's
awesome.
great property, well deserved. So many years that you have been grinding in multiple businesses, right, to get to all the different levels and service autopilot and everything successful there. So I look forward to continuing learning from you and networking with you and just enjoying, fellowship at all the different events that we go to. Awesome. So thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Oh, really?
I didn't even tell you that when I said this before. I don't know about that, but I was telling you.
Look at the ground.
Yeah. Look up at the sky. Look up at the sky. Have you ever wondered how I stand out in lawn care?
I was scratching my ear when you did that.
Okay.
And that was beautiful, too. I think that...